Let's talk about the schools crisis, just all the crises really, with political columnist at The Sun, Trevor Kavanagh. Good afternoon, Trevor.
Hi, Kevin. Busy day.
Well, of course, as ever. Now, in from nowhere, as it were, number one in the crisis charts, Gillian Keegan has been caught in that time-honoured fashion, off camera, still on mic, as we say in the business, making her feelings plain about how she's doing a great job tackling the crumbling concrete crisis, the aero bar style concrete that's causing all our schools to fall down and making them having to close. So she seems to feel that she's doing a great job, and she's complaining into the mic. You know what? Why does no one ever say, you know what, you've done an effing good job, because everyone else has sat on their, I'm going to say backsides, but she didn't use that for, and done nothing. Let's just have a quick watch of the Education Secretary in her unguarded moment.
But we will get a plan, and every single one of them will be done.
OK, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone ever say, you know what, you've done a good job because everyone else has sat on their and done nothing? No signs of that?
No, Gillian, there's no signs of that, because we don't think you've done an effing good job. In your defence, you are the 7th Education Secretary in 5 years, a ludicrous turnover for such an important job. And she has inherited the mess of her predecessors. We hear, Trevor, that the government was told 5 years ago that these schools would fall down because of this aero bar style concrete. Why they've suddenly moved now, just a few days before the terms were supposed to start, I don't know, but it must have been an absolute blind sense of panic. But in terms of Gillian Keegan, she shouldn't be slapping herself on the back quite so much, should she?
Well, this is an amazing story, isn't it? Only a few days ago, I think people, especially Gillian Keegan herself, were teeing her up as a potential candidate for the Tory leadership. I think it's a question of cock of the walk one day, feather duster the next.
Yeah.
Her future is as much in ruins as this government's is now. If there was a possibility that Rishi Sunak might spring a surprise and lead his beleaguered government back into a fourth term, I think that it's all gone to ruins now, along with the schools that are being closed in their stores. And you're right, they've known about this not just for the last 5 years, but for many years before that. So there's no excuse on this one.
Indeed. As you say, Gillian Keegan seems to feel it's everyone else's fault. As I say, if I have any sympathy for her, it is this, and I think something needs to be done about this. Education Secretary is arguably one of the most important jobs in the Cabinet. We've had 7 of them in 5 years. Now, Prime Ministers have got to raise their games with this. This is ridiculous. Oh, could you just be Education Secretary for a couple of weeks, then I'll bring someone else in, and when they've had enough, I'll bring... It's not any way to run an education department, is it? And perhaps that's got something to do with the mess we're in now, that you have these temporary kind of custodians of the department who barely get a look at it, move on, and the next one inherits a mess that the predecessor was hardly aware of. It's a joke, isn't it?
It is, and as you say, the education department is a very complicated department. It's very sensitive, and it's one of the biggest political hand grenades you can possibly be passed. I mean, it is a hospital pass straight away. There was a point at which there was some really good conservative policies being introduced into the education field by Michael Gove, who was promptly dumped by David Cameron as soon as the teachers predictably put up a firestorm against it. And nobody has fully got back into the job of looking after our school kids as they should. It was also knocked sideways again, and disastrously so, by the pandemic, when the unions decided to shut down all our schools, and the government went along with it. So, I mean, frankly, it's very difficult these days to stand up and say that this government is worth re-electing. And I think that this latest fiasco, which is going to put hundreds of schools at the very least out of action during the initial part of the new school year, is going to rebound really badly against this government. I mean, They were struggling before. Now they're in real trouble. I think they're on their knees again.
Yeah, this is an absolute shambles, and a shocking shambles for hundreds of thousands of parents, possibly, arguably, millions of kids, you know, who once again are going to be treated like they were in the lockdown, not being allowed to go to school, learning online at home, allegedly, and being deprived of the education which should be their basic right in a first world country like Britain. It's an absolute shocking shambles, and you're right. If Rishi had any problems before, he's got a lot more now. Trevor, stay where we are. We'll resume this conversation after these messages. I'm with the political columnist at The Sun, Trevor Kavanagh. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and this is Talk TV, live from the Talk Radio studios.